Traders, how are you? With Marcello. Today we're going to be doing the recap of what happened in the markets last week. A lot of interesting things like 1.3 million lightning strikes overnight in a storm in Australia. We have inflation skyrocketing to the most on record in China where they produce products. And we also have Elon Musk manipulating the markets again. So overall, the markets were mostly positive. We did hit record highs on Monday, but that was brought down, at least the S&P 500, by a survey that Elon Musk did. Remember, he's the richest man in the world, if I'm not mistaken, at 200 billion or 300 billion, just super zero billions. And so he asked everybody, well, because I want to be a nice guy and pay taxes, because they're talking about taxes and unrealized gains. Do you guys think I should sell 10% of my Tesla stock, which equates to about $21 billion? 2 million people responded within about 7 hours. 55% of the people said, yes, you should sell the stock. So he's trying to do it in a super positive image, when in reality, he set this plan out to be able to sell the stocks in September. So he's just kind of trying to save face, so to speak. And there's some people, Michael Burry, which is one of the people that predicted the 2008-2009 financial crisis when everybody else saying that everything was fine. He says that he needs to sell a stock to actually cover his debts because he collateralized his stock, meaning he took out loans from that stock that he has. And so he had to pay the loans, he had to service the loans. Other than that, investors' wealth in the stock market increased by more than $9.7 trillion. That's up 23.5% in the year through Friday. Yet we have a lot of Americans lacking confidence due to the fact that the inflation, the cost of everything is exploding, and income, or the amount of wages that people receive, isn't going up at the same rate. And this is going to be a big problem for the economy going forward. If you guys remember, at the beginning of the year, I talked to you guys about how the government was only reporting maybe 3 or 4% inflation, but you could see when you go to the grocery store how much money you're spending, right? I saw items, sausages and ice cream go up by 20, 30%. I think the real inflation right now is literally over 30%. And if you guys have seen that in the grocery store, let me know in the comments, what amount of money, or, if you spent, for example, $600 a month or $800 a month on food, how much you're spending now, just to kind of get an idea of the costs are going up, because I think you guys realize it as well, right? Other than that, stocks mostly lower for the week, even though they did reach record highs. Thanks to Elon Musk that brought down the market. Overseas market news, European markets are mostly mixed as well. Istanbul taking the biggest winner there in Europe, in Latin America, and Canada, if you guys remember the joke from a few weeks ago. Mostly mixed, with Canada being up 1.53%. And then in the the Middle East and also Africa, South Africa took the crown as the most positive there at over 3%. The far East, Asia and Australia, the Hang Seng, which is a market in Hong Kong, was up by most of all at 1.83%. And then big news in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. None other than the fact that Bitcoin hit a record high, $67,611.20. For the week, though, it's down 2.5%. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe Ethereum also hit a record high. We have a few corrections as well. There was a hack. Both Kroger, which is the largest supermarket in the United States, and also Walmart, which is one of the biggest retailers, if not the biggest retailer in the world, said that the news that came out that they're going to start accepting crypto for payments is absolutely false. So, Kroger's page, for example, got hacked. There was a PR statement that appeared on their website, and then they said that that's not true. So they removed it, they deleted it, and they deleted all the news items. But both Walmart and Kroger are not going to be accepting cryptos. Other than that, Tim Cook, which is the CEO of Apple, admitted that he does own crypto. He said that he thinks it's reasonable to own a part of a diversified portfolio. And he also said that Apple, even though they're looking at the crypto technology, they're not something that they have planned immediate plans to do. Mexico is looking to put a 20% tax on the transactions in Bitcoin. Zimbabwe is trying to follow El Salvador's lead by making Bitcoin legal tender. So they're starting to consult a lot of private businesses and individuals in regards to the technology and crypto. 7.2% of Zimbabwe, of the entire economy, is remittances, meaning that there's people from Zimbabwe that go overseas to work and they send back money. Whereas a country like El Salvador is about 24% of GDP. MasterCard is also launching a Bitcoin payment card in the Asia Pacific region. So basically any consumer, any business is going to be able to pay, receive, or basically make transactions with a debit card or a credit card or even prepaid cards with a Bitcoin basically connected to the card. And also the commodities, oil prices rose to a 2-week high on Tuesday after the United States lifted travel restrictions. If you guys remember, Trump during the pandemic imposed restrictions from places like China and Europe. And now all the people are going to be able to travel to the United States, especially from these restricted countries, as long as they have the vaccine and obviously a negative test. And the airlines are anticipating a huge increase in demand for the actual flights. You know, obviously tourism is huge in the United States. If you guys didn't know, France is the most visited country in the world. This is pre-pandemic. We have France, then Spain at number 2. United States was actually at number 3. So visitors in the U.S. contributed to over $43.4 billion in 2019, and 27% of the total shopping was driven by travel and tourism. So this is going to be a big boost to the U.S. economy as long as people come, right? And in China, the world's biggest crude importer, saw oil imports plunge in October back down to their lowest level since September of 2018. If you guys didn't know, in China, basically they have a lot of state-owned companies where it's kind of like a lot of the airlines in Europe, for example, where they're semi-private, where they kind of function as private entities, but they're actually owned by the state. And so China actually limited the purchase, and this is really important because China is the biggest importer of oil in the world. So if they continue this or they release from their strategic reserves, this could cause a little bit of a downturn in the oil market. Overall, coffee as well surged to a 7-year high on supply woes. Poor weather, supply chain disruptions. Also, we have a huge increase in soaring fertilizer costs. Obviously, that's threatening inventories as well. And the prices have almost doubled from the last year. If you guys have been following me for a while, I have my own coffee plantation. I just picked up some coffee recently, and it is amazing. So I might talk to you guys about that soon. If you guys like coffee, let me know there in the comments, and we'll hook it up. Other than that, inflation fears have caused gold and silver to actually go up. If you guys remember when we had that little bit of a downturn, I talked to you guys how it was a great time to be able to look at these markets. Remember, I'm not a trading advisor, not legal advice, not trading advice, just, educational purposes only. But silver and gold have definitely gone up quite a bit. If you guys know, I know some of you guys have been asking me for the video about how I trade the miners, so I'll definitely do that video for you guys. But definitely up big with a lot of these miners, which is great. Precious metals for the week. Gold is up 2.59% to a 5-month high, 1,866. Silver is up 4.82% to 2542, which is a 3-month high. And the miners, the reason why I trade the miners is because whenever you have silver, for example, going up 1%, the miners might go up 10, 20%, right? So you basically look at the silver chart, see what the expectations are, and then after that, get some physical too, because obviously the government coin is coming and they'll shut you off if you say the wrong thing online. Financial and banking news. Producer prices in China are up 13.5%, which is the most on record. This obviously has to do with extreme weather and coal shortages, even though at the end of the video, I always talk to you guys about the natural disasters because they're starting to increase right now. China, especially northern China, is getting pummeled by, tens of feet of snow, which obviously is going to make the matters even worse. If you guys remember, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I talked to you guys how China was demanding that they shut down factories to use less electricity. And one of the things from Visual Capitalist that I saw this week, you should follow them. They make all kind of visuals to be able to understand things. It's great. The majority of the energy production in the world is coal. And if you guys remember last week, Remember, right? I always do these videos so I can try to teach you guys how to put together all the dots and try to anticipate what's going to come, because most of you guys that have been following me for quite a while, unfortunately, some of the negative things that I expect to happen come true. And it's not to kind of, scare you into things that the zombies are coming and the apocalypse. Is just to get yourself ready, because unfortunately things are gonna get testy this winter. And so, if you guys remember, I believe it was last week or 2 weeks ago, I talked to you guys about how the United States coal production was already sold through 2022 and 23. They only had about less than 10% of the coal to be able to sell. Colombia, which was the 12th largest exporter in the world of coal, producer, I should say, they were having problems producing or mining the coal because of the strong winter and rains. And obviously, if the majority of the world still generates electricity through coal, and we have a problem getting the coal because now we have these huge supply chain issues, we're going to have a problem with electricity, which is the electrical shortages that I told you guys about the last few weeks. Other than that, U.S. producer prices, right, not China's, but the production prices in the United States rose 8.6% from a year ago. That's their highest in nearly 11 years. And U.S. consumer prices hit a 31-year high, 5 consecutive months of above 5%. And one of the things that's really interesting, and I want to show you guys this, the reason for the inflation most is the decision of the Central Bank of the United States, which is followed up by the government of the U.S. right now, which is injecting a huge amount of money for, the stimulus, helping people, Green New Deal, all the stuff that they want to do. So they're putting in a massive amount of money. They're basically just flipping a switch, turning on the printing presses, and then injecting money into the financial system. Well, what happens? If you put more money, then the value of the money goes down. It's very simple, right? Supply and demand. And so if you guys see this chart that I have on here, notice that since 2000, the value of $1, the amount that you can buy, or otherwise said, the purchasing power has gone down literally from 100 down to almost 60. And if you guys look at right here at the end, you can see that even though it's been going down overall, right at the end there in 2021, notice how it took a sharp turn to the downside. That has to do to the fact that, the $3.5 trillion stimulus that they want to do and all this other stimulus that they want to implement, the total amount of dollars in existence from March 2020 to October 2021 is increased by 36%. Whereas in the last 18 months, the dollars in circulation is increased by 336%. So obviously, part of the reason why we're getting this inflation is because they're injecting so much money into the financial system that the value of the dollar is going down, and that's increasing prices. It's completely unsustainable. I've talked to you guys about the dollar collapsing, and obviously that's there's going to be a major correction coming soon if we don't turn the ship, which it doesn't look like we're going to do so. Other than that as well, you can see here one of the things I always try to do in these videos outside of doing them free, so you can leave me a like there on YouTube or Instagram, is always understanding how to read things, right? The government right now is reporting, I believe, a 5 or 6%, I can't remember the exact number, a 5 or 6% inflation rate. Just to give you an example here on this chart that you guys see, and I know some of you guys are listening on the podcast, the CPI, which is the government tracked or reported inflation, owner's equivalent rent of residence, is significantly different, which is the red line here compared to the purple line, which is the actual index. So the basic premise here, especially if you guys are listening on the podcast, and if you do want to listen, just look for Day Trading Academy on Spotify or iTunes, wherever. The amount of inflation that the government is reporting is significantly understated because they're not actually reporting the actual statistics of the inflation, of the actual numbers. Another thing here, for example, is if you see the food price index, 2021 is significantly higher, almost 100%, 150% higher than all the other previous years, which is 2018, 2019, 2020. So keep in mind that they're going to continue printing more money whenever the government says, we're going to do another stimulus. We want to help people. We want to inject more money or infrastructure, whatever. The more money that they put into the system, the more bills that they pass with these trillions of dollars of numbers, the more that the prices of things are going to go up. In political news, China's 6th plenum is ready to end in Beijing. Basically a huge gathering of the Chinese Communist Party, which is essentially going to make President Xi Jinping potentially position him as a president for life in China. He's the most powerful Chinese leader since Mao, which is quite a long time ago. In economic news, also China, which is the world's second largest economy in the world by GDP, their growth rate in Q3 was only 4.9%, which is lower than what analysts anticipated at 5.2. So basically, we have the situation where we have these huge costs going up, right? A lot of people are concerned because their wages or their income isn't going up at the same level. And then we also have the second largest economy, for example, not growing as fast as what we anticipated they were going to be. Initial claims also edged a little bit lower at 267,000. However, a record number of people left their jobs at over 4.43 million. So there's now over 10 million job openings. And this is the other part of the inflation situation of why costs are going up. A lot of companies can't find workers. Mostly before it was because the government was doling out free money and people basically it was cheaper to stay home essentially. And so because people are leaving their jobs, well, now they're paying people a lot more, not only to attract new talent, but also keep the talent that they have. This obviously incurs higher costs, and eventually companies aren't just going to eat those higher costs, they're going to pass them on to you and I, which means even more inflation. So things are definitely going to get heavy, especially in 2022. So you better prepare yourself. I think the preppers were right. In corporate news, Viasat, which is an a satellite internet company, bought another one called Inmarsat for $7.3 billion in cash and stock. They also took on about $3.4 billion in debt. Their stock went down by almost 17%. AMD, which is the company that produces processing chips like Intel, it's the major competitor to Intel, they exploded higher at over 10% after it was agreed that they won a contract with Facebook to be able to power the metaverse that Facebook was launching. In addition to that, PayPal had its worst day in 19 months after they didn't hit their earnings and also sent lower expected earnings in the future. And AstraZeneca fell at 6.9% after they didn't make their earnings either. So now notice how many of these companies are hitting their earnings, especially big companies, right? That tells you another thing. Notice the expansion or the increase in the size of the economy in China. Now we have a lot of these companies which are going down because they're not making as much money or they're expected. They made forward guidance that they're not going to make as much money in the future. You're connecting the dots, right? You see how we do that? And for those of you guys also that are listening on the podcast, you can find the videos online. Just look for maybe, Day Trading Academy English or Marcello Arrambide, Marcello Trader English. I'm sure you guys will be able to find it that way. UK, I told you guys about AstraZeneca. General Electric is going to split into 3 companies. They announced on Tuesday after they haven't had very good numbers for almost the last, seems like forever. But essentially, they're going to split the companies into aviation, healthcare, and energy, and they're expecting to do that by 2023 and 24. Rivian Automotive, which is making the electric pickup trucks, they went public, closed much higher than what they were anticipated, and their market cap now, or the valuation of the company, is bigger than companies like Honda and Nissan, even though they don't make any money. And Johnson & Johnson rose, also announcing that they're going to be splitting as well to 2 companies, basically one focused on medical devices and pharmaceuticals and the other one in consumer products. Really interesting that a lot of these companies are starting to split, right? Why is that? In trade news, export growth in China slowed in October by over 27%. So again, another red flag in the Chinese economy, which is the second largest in the world. The global trade surplus in China increased to a record high in October as well. And also we have the EU, the European Union, and the UK back at the negotiating table to be able to sort out their trade situation before a trade war starts, even though the UK was part of the EU in 2020. They left in 2020. They still have a lot of trade arrangements that need to be made. In technology, Amazon is seeking permission from the U.S. Federal Communications Commission to be able to launch more than 4,500 additional satellites as part of Amazon's effort to deliver high broadband internet around the world. If you guys remember, Facebook is doing this, SpaceX is doing this, and it's not by the good of their heart. Obviously, they want more customers to be able to increase their revenue. At the end of the day, it's called Project Kuiper program, and they want to launch over 7,700 satellites to be deployed in total. In investment news, 2 U.S. senators are introducing bipartisan legislation to make it harder for tech giants like Amazon, Alphabet, Google, and also Facebook and Microsoft to purchase and make further acquisitions. And it would also make it easier for the government to stop these companies or stop these acquisitions from going through in accordance to competitive and antitrust laws. In international events, there's a buildup of Russian forces on the Ukrainian border. The United States is sounding the alarm, telling their allies in the EU that Russia may look to invade Ukraine, when Russia is saying, no, we're just moving our military within our borders. That's completely legal. We're not trying to do any intimidating at all. And then there's also a huge standoff between Poland and Belarus, where, if you guys don't remember, the EU essentially sanctioned Belarus. If you guys remember, they said that they couldn't fly through Belarus, jets or planes couldn't go into European airspace. So they put all kinds of sanctions on the country of Belarus due to the elections that they had, which supposedly were, there was fraud and, anti-government, et cetera, et cetera. And, well, now Belarus is supposedly arming and weaponizing immigrants and telling immigrants to come, giving them guns and all kinds of things, then telling them to storm the Polish border. So now the EU is leaning towards the construction of a wall on the border between the two countries to be able to go ahead and protect the EU border. And in unusual facts this week, one man in one field in the UK has found essentially what is the largest declared ever gold coins of Anglo-Saxon descent. He has 131 coins that he found over 30 years, and it's now considered the largest trove ever of these coins. And in natural disasters, there was huge tsunami waves in the country of Ghana in Africa, which displaced thousands of people, destroyed homes, and also the waves were so strong that they literally grabbed bodies from a cemetery out from where they were at. If you guys don't remember, there was a huge earthquake in Japan, if I'm not mistaken, where it was so strong it literally raised the level of the ocean, and there were ships from World War II that were sunken that are literally above the water now, if you guys remember that. In Australia, overnight, there were 1.3 million bolts of electricity in a storm that caused a record rainfall and flooding. I don't know if you guys notice, I don't know if it's just me, right? I've been in this industry, the trading and finance industry, for about 21 years now. So my brain is kind of set to notice patterns and situations where, because in trading you have to do that, right? It's essentially pattern recognition. And I don't know if you guys have been noticing, but the weather extremes have been getting a little bit more frequent. And one of the things I wanted to show you guys as well, which I thought was really interesting, is if you guys don't know, a lot of North America and Europe, it's supposed to be colder than what it actually is based on how north it is, especially to the North Pole. Well, part of what regulates the temperature in Europe and also North America is the ocean current. So essentially, the Earth isn't a perfect sphere. It's kind of like a bulge in the equator, and so there's more sun. The water warms up, and you guys will see the video here in a second, or as I'm talking, you guys will see it. And essentially, what happens? That warm water is traveled up through the north through the jet stream, the ocean. Not the jet stream. That's in the atmosphere. The ocean current, and that carries the warm water and then back again. So in the video, you guys are going to see how the cold water in an aquarium goes through the bottom, whereas the warm water goes through the top. And that's essentially what helps regulate the temperature and keeps it rather temperate in Europe and North America. Well, that's slowing down. So when we go back and talk about the blackouts and the shortages, the majority of electric production is still coal. If we have a really nasty winter, which we're expecting to have, this slowing ocean current could be part of that problem. That's the news for this week, guys. Don't forget to hit the like button. If you guys are on the podcast, you can search for, Marcello Trader English. It should come up. Don't forget to subscribe. If you have any questions, leave them with #AskMarcello. We'll see you next week. Bye.